Welcome everybody to a new edition of the Sprint Right Option podcast. Unfortunately, Andrew Pasquini couldn't be with me today, but we do have two very prestigious guests from the Locked On 49ers podcast. I want to ask you guys if this is what you're running with or if this is something that you've workshopped, but I really love the idea of Peacock. I love this idea. So we have Brian Peacock and Eric Crocker of the Locked On 49ers podcast joining us today. Fellas, how are you?
Doing fantastic. That was the listeners coming up with Peacock and Crocked On 49ers. There's a lot of different ways. That someone today said Barrick Peacock as it was like a celebrity something like that. But yeah, Croc's been a fantastic addition to Locked On 49ers. Super fun talking ball with him every single day.
Yeah, I think the best nicknames come organically. So especially when you don't even have to come up with it. My kids, they all have nicknames. I have Pickle, I got Juice, I got Suge, D, and someone came up with all those nicknames for them. So, and I just run with it. So I think that's what we're doing here with Peacock.
I love it. And Croc, you and I, we were crossing paths too much on all these, these different platforms and stuff. Like you and I, I feel like we talk way more on podcasts as well. I was lucky enough to join the Locked On 49ers podcast when Brian asked me, and that was one of the biggest thrills that I've had since I've joined this endeavor. So I want to start this off a little bit fun, okay? Or depending on how you look at it. So the state of the franchise just happened. And I think the worst kept secret in 49ers Twitter history was the debut of the 94 throwback jerseys. Question for you, though, Brian. Why do you hate the 94 throwbacks, and what's the issue with it? I love the jersey. I love where it came from, and it is conducive to winning because it only happened 1 year and they won. But talk to me about what you don't. Yeah, look at that patch. Like, what do you not? Right. What do you not like about the 94 throwback jerseys?
Well, first of all, they're not even 94 throwback jerseys. It's okay. Think about what was happening 75 years ago. And basically they had these big ass numbers in the middle of their chest on red shirts. So you could see it from 100 miles away. So the radio guy knew what numbers. He's like, is that Hugh McElhaney or is that Joe Perry? I can't tell. So that apart with this insane drop shadow for no reason. Like, that's not the thing you should be trying to replicate. And so, look, they're fine. I don't hate them as much as it's made out to be. It's fun conversation for the podcast. And Croc tried to put me on blast on Twitter saying that I was anti the uniforms. And everyone gets really excited about the newest, shiniest thing. But it takes a bit to sell me. Like, you're not just going to sell me on any old thing. And the NFL is so good at dipping their little fingers into your pocketbook, right? And selling you on everything all year around. And this is June, and we're talking about something that people are lining up to buy. I think Fred Warner's jersey is already sold out for the throwbacks. So the NFL does a great job of that. But they're fine. They're whatever. They're throwbacks, so you wear them a little bit. But people are freaking out like they're the greatest thing ever. Like the classics, 88, 1989, gold helmet, old logo, gold pants. That's the look. That is the championship dynasty look. And that should be the number one. And that's just like, you can't knock that off the perch. So as long as you're saying, oh, I like these, but they're not as good as those, then I'm okay with it. But people are freaking out a little bit too much just because it's the newest, shiniest thing that they're wearing this year. But improved since the actual 94 throwbacks, because those were not a great look. They have improved them this year. But Croc always throws Dion out there as like, hey, look how good Dion looks in it. Dude's got every accessory that's ever existed on his body. That's what it takes. Then it's not about the jersey. It's about the accessories in the first place.
So that's what I was going to ask, because we have our resident swag, I guess, what's the expert with Croc, right?
He cares about this. He thinks about this daily. He looks at every single player and dresses them all down with his eyes every time they walk onto the field, when you and I are just like hoping to see some good football.
Of course, good football, but look good, play good. And I want to get Croc's take on this real quick.
All right, so first I want to start off by saying I was actually listening to, I want to say KBR, and it was Lombardi on, I think. And he came up with some great points. I think he wrote an article on this. The first thing that was very intriguing to hear, the 49ers have, using them as throwbacks, as they did in 1994, have never lost in those uniforms. So that was something cool to hear. Second, why are, and I remember, and I've always thought about this, but I don't remember the 94 season that much, but I know you can go back and you can see Deion Sanders wearing the regular uniforms, and then you can also see him wearing those throwback jerseys. So I never understood, like, man, why did they wear both uniforms? I got the answer. First, do any of you guys?
Didn't they have to like go to the NFL and champion to have those done? Like they had to like do something that was out of the ordinary, if I remember correctly.
So what happened was they had wore them and they won. And they wore them their amount of times that they were able to wear them, like once or twice or something like that. Well, they went to the other uniforms and got their butts kicked. Their regular uniforms. They got their butts kicked.
The Eagles game, right? Wasn't that the game that Steve Young got pulled and he was yelling at George Seifert at the end? Yeah. Okay.
So got their butts kicked, and then something else happened. And I guess Seifert was just like, nah, we're going back to those throwback uniforms. And as story tells it, they went and said, no matter what, whether we get fined or not, we're wearing these uniforms. And it was like, hey, if there is going to be a fine, we're just going to cover the fine. Don't worry about it or whatever. But those uniforms, we're just going to wear them. And they never lost in those uniforms. So that was how it came about, with why they wore those uniforms so much that year, which was a very interesting story for me to hear, since I was like 8 years old when all that happened.
Jeez, I'm really dating myself. So that year, I turned 10 in 94. I wasn't 11 when the Super Bowl happened, which was February of 95, if I'm not mistaken. So I was 10 years old. And I don't know what made me remember that, but I remember that the 49ers went to the NFL and said, we want to wear these jerseys the entire time. Apparently, George Seifert was super superstitious. Like double superstitious with these sort of things. So, and it's funny because it does bring you back to that Eagles game where Steve Young got pulled and he was upset. And I think they wore it the first week against Detroit, if I'm not mistaken. They wore the white ones that year. And I can like see Steve Young right now with the diamond turfs. Those were the Deion cleats at the time. And I had a pair because they were 49ers colors. But I can look right back and kind of see that in my mind, how that works. So it's really interesting. And you know what? Brian's right. The white ones were such a big hit in 2019 that the red ones had to come back eventually. And with the 75th year, where they had the patch on that one, now they've got the 75th year of the 49ers. It kind of just lines up perfectly. So I think Brian's right. The NFL absolutely knows exactly what they're doing. And the 49ers know what they're doing.
There were a lot of people, I think, that just wanted the red ones in general, though. I think that was when the white ones came out, there were a lot of people that were coming out like, man, like, okay, the white ones, like, that's great, but we want those red ones. And I think people were really anticipating getting them.
I think it's the opposite. Everybody knew the white ones were better, so that's why they brought them out first. And then they were I'm serious. Way back in the day, everybody knew the white on white was better look than the white on red, because it's just like. And there's a ton of teams that do that, and it just looks bad when it's all white pants and then it's a new color at the waist and it's that color all the way up. And it's just something about that aesthetically is extremely unpleasing to me. So that's the biggest thing about it. And gold pants would be a huge benefit to any 49ers jersey. So it's very good that the 49ers did add that gold in at some point, and they improved on those old 55 uniforms.
So let's put a bow on this. The best football jersey for the 49ers, in your opinion, I'll start with you, Brian, is the 49ers team that with the red and gold.
Yeah, red. There's the standard red, not that burgundy stuff that I don't know why they tried so hard in the 90s to screw everything up, because they had it right. They had it perfect. 88, 89, 84, winning Super Bowls, gold helmet, the old logo without the extra whatever they're trying to do with the logo there. There's like a gold stripe and then or a gold border, then a black border, and then the gold helmet. It's just an extra color for no reason. It throws it off. It's not as clean as the old just thick black border SF logo. That logo on the gold helmet, gold pants. I don't care how thick the stripes are. I think they definitely upgraded them for now with how they do the sleeves and the shorter sleeves and the smaller stripes and stuff, and that's fine. So that all looks great. Now, that's the best uniform, just the classic dynasty uniform. Whether it's home or away, they both look great. Gold helmet, gold pants.
Croc, best uniform in 49ers history. Go for it.
I think for the 49ers, the traditional, uniforms that he's talking about, I think those are the best. But just in general, the best looking uniform that they can put on are clearly the all whites. Those are the best. Like if you were to poll around the league, what 49er uniforms look the best, I think those would be like have a really high percentage of like those are the best that the 49ers could wear. But just for me being a 49er fan and what the red and gold means and stuff, I think their traditional ones look the best for them.
Yeah, and I think that I fall in line with the white ones being the cleanest because they did.
What about black on black?
The black on black. Oh, hold on.
Well, okay.
I don't care what anybody says. I love the black on black uniforms. I think
Mm-hmm.
it's the cool thing to kind of diss them and play them down how cool they look. I get it. The numbers aren't great to see on film, on camera or whatever.
I don't think that people were mad. I don't think that people were mad about the way that they looked. I think that they tie it to that Jim Tomsula, Chip Kelly era, and they don't want to remember it. So I think that if the 49ers, if they were winning games, I think in those uniforms, people would like them a lot more, if you ask me.
I don't think so. A lot of the outrage from those uniforms, one, people complained a lot about not being able to read the names for whatever reason, even though I knew who everybody was. And then two, people, the black like the Raiders. And I'm like, dude, this like every team in the NFL has black uniforms damn near. Like it's not just the Raiders. But
that's the one thing I don't like about it is that don't chase the trend. Everyone's throwing black on everything. Okay, well, let's go white, or let's just stick with the classics. Like I love how the Steelers, you got to go back to like the 50s or 40s, whenever, when those bumblebee uniforms are like just completely, they just been so classic for so long. When teams throw too much out there, and we're gonna start to see that in 2022 with the helmets, which by the way, if you're gonna throw back to these old uniforms, they should wear the red helmets along with them, right? Because that's because the gold doesn't really go with these uniforms throwbacks anyway, but we can't see those alternate helmets until that's a new rule. It goes until 2022. So who knows what we'll see there with the new helmets around the league. But when you start throwing too much stuff out there, it gets convoluted. And like, I like the classic. I like knowing what the color is. Like it's scarlet and gold, and that's it. So you start there and that's it. And so like, I like and it's fine. Throw some alternates out there, have fun with it. I
would like them to wear.
It's like, go all whites, go all blacks, have a game with the reds, whatever, even if they don't look great, have some fun, but don't run out there with 9 games a season with the alternates, because they're alternates for a reason. Have a game, have fun. I know you want to sell some extra merchandise, and that's all great, but it's all about the classics. It's scarlet and gold. That's the 49ers to me.
I like the all blacks for a game, and I think they look sweet for a game. I would love for them to bring them back just for one game. But again, I think if you were to poll people around the league that don't have anything to do with the Niners, the all whites would probably be the ones that get the highest amount of votes.
Yeah. Although at the same time, I don't know if polling people is the best way to go about it, because I don't think the general public is really great at this. Like there's people out there buying these nasty ass draft hats every year that are just 4 minutes designing. They always look bad, and everyone's like, "Oh, I don't usually like them, but I like it this year," and they'll go buy their draft hat. The draft hat is like the most obvious grab that exists in the NFL.
I've seen people say I bought every single draft hat, so I'm gonna buy this one. And this year's one is already on sale. If you look on Fanatics or Shop 49ers, they're the ones that are discounted the most and the quickest. And I think that what Kyle Shanahan has brought, and I didn't think we were gonna spend 14 minutes talking about uniforms. I really didn't. So we'll move on right after this. But I thought that the trucker hat thing wouldn't have caught on if Kyle doesn't wear the Shanahan hat beginning, and now that becomes the standard on the draft hat.
Yeah, and that's another one too. The trucker hat thing. Trucker hats are cheaper to make, so the merchandise companies love this. So they can charge the same $30 for a hat that should cost $1.99 at the gas station. And that's the thing about the Shanahan hat, the red one with the small logo. The first time I saw that, I was like, dude, that better not be on sale at the NFL shop for more than $1.99, because that is a garbage hat. But people love it, and whatever. To each their own. Love it.
It was so hard to get their hands on, though. That was the best part about it. Is like if you ordered the Shanahan hat when you did and you had a chance, it took you a long while to get your hands on that.
See, and even for me, like with the new Shanahan hat, I really like that one. The old one with the script on the front, but there's an extra logo on the side that kills it for me. that I didn't even know was there until I saw it online or saw it on the shop, and there's like a third angle. So it's got it says New Era on this side. Then there's another logo on the side for no reason. Keep it clean. Get that crap off the hat. San Francisco 49ers old script is the only thing that should be on the hat, and it ruined it for me.
Okay. I mean, look, this is a good discussion, and if we had Crocker on here, we could talk for hours about swag and what works for this team. And I have the same exact hat that he bought because it has a 75 patch on it, and I think that is so clean. But let's talk about some things that are actually.
Croc just moved his hat around. Are you growing your hair out, Croc? What's going on over there?
Well, yeah, I said that. I'm balding, but I wanted to wear a do-rag, so I said I'm going to grow my hair out for a week, so people can't clown me for wearing a do-rag.
Just hanging out the back of your do-rag?
Yeah. So you know what's funny? It's funny because Croc had to ask a question like, "Can I wear a do-rag while I'm bald?" I think you can, and I understand the idea of the do-rag is to get waves. I understand that's the idea to get that, but at the same time, you still can. I believe, if you're asking me, not that it matters. If you ask
me, I didn't know that was even a thing. It's amazing.
But so look, this is a great topic. I didn't think that we were going to spend 15 minutes on uniforms, but the 49ers were fined at their for an infraction with OTAs, and let's just take this one, just giving out good juju and positive vibes to all three of you. 49ers content, and I was 15 when we beat San Diego. Thank you, 49ers First Take, for the donation. I appreciate you, bro. So we're talking about the OTA fines. The team was fined $100,000. Kyle Shanahan was fined $50,000. For me, I know that this would bring up a lot of discussion with the people who aren't as in love with Kyle Shanahan as many of the fan base are. But I think that my biggest concern is that he's lumped into now Mike McCarthy and Urban Meyer were the other two head coaches that were fined. And I don't like that idea, only because I don't think much of Mike McCarthy, and Urban Meyer will break the rules at every single level. It doesn't matter. If he's playing you in one-on-one chess, he's going to cheat. When you turn your back, he's going to move one of the pieces into a place that it wasn't there. It's just Urban Meyer's MO. Do you guys have any sort of concerns? And I'll start with Croc first. Do you guys have any sort of concerns with the way Kyle Shanahan is handling things? Or does this signify something that's a little bit bigger? Or is this just nothing at all?
I don't think it's anything at all, man. I mean, it seems like he got fined for maybe some touching or whatever, guys touching during OTAs or whatever. Like, man, that stuff doesn't matter. Only person this should even matter to at all or be a discussion with is Jed York. And I don't know if he cares that much about $100,000. Like, he has so much money, but that's the only thing or only person I feel like it should matter to. I've seen it be a big discussion on social media, and people kind of try to tie that to Kyle Shanahan and maybe why he's the way he is, or why maybe they haven't had the success that they've liked. But that has nothing to do with anything, man. Like, it was a little infraction for something that happened, and they got fined for it. And yeah, that's it. It shouldn't be a big deal at all. I don't think because of that, because of a touch or whatever that got caught on film, right? Which most teams around the league probably touch at some point during OTAs and don't get caught. All right. It was a touch that got caught. They got fined. All right. Hey guys, tomorrow don't touch. I mean,
don't get caught is what you're saying, right?
Don't get caught. The wise words of one young Jeezy. Brian, I'll pass on to you real quick. What do you think?
Yeah, and I don't know, and there's a reason for it, because Kyle Shanahan admitted that Justin School got hurt on a contact pass rush drill, and which is technically supposed to be illegal and not happen. Is Justin School's leg still fully intact if that didn't happen? So I can kind of see it, and I if they're breaking the rules, they got caught. There was the leak of that practice film and rookie mini camp with Diamador Lenore, and then there was the School injury. I think either one of those could have been infractions, because Kyle Shanahan admitted it himself in the press conference that there was contact, and as far as I know, that's not supposed to happen. So I'm guessing almost every team in the league has more contact than they're supposed to at this point. How can you practice football without some kind of contact, especially in the trenches? Like, what are those guys supposed to do? Is it like the Pro Bowl when they're kicking a field goal and there's just guys out there for no reason and they just kind of stand up when the ball is snapped. I don't really understand what they're supposed to do. So, but the biggest point to me is, you're right about Urban Meyer. He's cheating somehow, and he's going to try to find an edge, and he knows he can't do the recruiting edge anymore, so he's got to try to figure out some way to win games and get an advantage, and he's smart enough to pick the Jacksonville Jaguars the year that they have a generational quarterback coming out, so good on him. He's no dummy. And I don't think $100,000 is going to matter to any of these guys. Jed York can go have another Kenny Chesney concert at Levi's Stadium in the offseason to make up for whatever fines they're paying. So to me, it's not a big deal at all, and you ain't trying if you ain't cheating. Right.
Go for it, Croc.
I also think I lost my train of thought. Oh, no. Okay. No, I don't think that this was a rule to prevent injury. I think this is like a COVID thing. I don't think this was like a rule that's been around long. So I was never told, hey, it's OTAs, don't touch anybody. You know what I'm saying? Like we just compete our butts off. I think this was a COVID thing, and they trying to keep it as COVID free as possible, and try to put in little rules within everything that you do and try to micromanage the whole situation so that the COVID numbers aren't up.
So it's a good point, but with the CBA, and this is my understanding of it, with the new CBA, the Seattle Seahawks have been fined twice for the similar infractions, and the same things have happened to them. So there is a precedent for it. And on Haberman and Middlecoff's podcast, right after it happened, shout out to both of those guys. We love them over here. Middlecoff kind of alluded to the idea that Pete Carroll, like in Belly, walked out of the bodega. He's got a banana in his hand. And he was like, "Hey man, I don't like this. Yeah, I don't like. Yeah, Croc knows exactly what I'm talking about. I don't like this, man. I got to drop a dime on them." So it's something that, yes, it is something that we have to figure out whether this is the CBA, whether this is COVID, because COVID does have these stringent now, parameters around what is allowed and what's not. But it seems like for a few years now, they haven't been allowed to touch. And I don't want to say, here's the other thing. Everybody wants to blame Lenore for posting the video. He had a great rep. He was excited. He's a younger guy. But the NFL can review any sort of tape, practice film that they want anytime. That they can go to your team and say, give us the practice film from this and this day and go ahead and run with it. So I don't necessarily know if it's that. Obviously, it was taken down immediately, but it already made its way around the interwebs and things like that. But it's an interesting conversation. And I think that a lot of the people who are on the side of, hey, Kyle Shanahan doesn't have control of this team is kind of taking this and running with it a little bit. And that's the part that I think the only embarrassing thing is that you're lumped in with Mike McCarthy and Urban Meyer at this point. That's it. That's it. That's really it. I don't really think there's anything other than that. Mike McCarthy got a job with the Dallas Cowboys because he signed up for PFF Elite. And Urban Meyer has a job with the Jaguars. Like Brian said, he picked the right time because Trevor Lawrence is going to be his quarterback. It's going to be hard. If he can mess this up, this is going to be because he's trying to mess it up at this point. And I think that's a lot of what Brian's talking about.
Yeah, I had DJ Reed on my podcast, obviously former 49er, now with the Seahawks. And it could just be him being politically correct, but he had nothing but great things to say about Kyle Shanahan. When I tried to go out of my way to say Kyle Shanahan was kind of a certain way with how he was with the players and how he was as a coach, and he was kind of like, nah, you got it wrong. Like, Kyle is like, basically, we love Kyle. Everybody follows Kyle. Everybody follows his lead and how he is, and we love how he is. And there, he's whatever. He had no bad things to say about him, even when he had a chance to kind of confirm what I was saying, which not saying he was like a bad dude or anything, but just that he was kind of a little bit cold-hearted or whatever. And he was like, nah, he's like completely the opposite.
Perception is reality, and it's good to. It's funny because I've had conversations with people on this current 49ers roster, and how they talk about how when Kyle walks in the room, everybody listens and they sit and when they think they know football and they talk about, I've been studying, Kyle talks about things in a way that they've never even thought about. And these are players. These are guys who see tendencies and they see players and they understand all those things. Kyle Shanahan is obviously in charge of the X's and O's in a way that commands the respect of a room full of players who are trying to get to that level of mastery. I guess that's the best way I could put it. But to put a bow on this, I think it's more the people who are going to have bad things to say about Kyle Shanahan are going to use this in a way to say he doesn't have any control over this team or anything like that. But hey, that's another topic for another day. Here's an interesting thing that I wanted to bring up. And PFF put out an article today about the worst draft pick from 2006 for every single team. And for the 49ers, they chose Solomon Thomas. So before you guys start, and I'm going to pass it to Brian first, I am a big proponent of I don't kill players for where they were drafted. You didn't draft yourself there. If someone reached for you, that's their business. That's up to them, and that's their business. And unfortunately, where you're drafted is tied to the way that you're viewed. And with my opinion on Solomon Thomas was, okay, maybe he shouldn't have been the number 3 pick, but he didn't pick himself there. He didn't play himself on the outside. He didn't play himself out of position. So sometimes things are out of their control. I'm interested to get your guys' take on this, and I'll toss it to Brian first about what PFF said about Solomon Thomas.
Obviously, a hugely disappointing pick. How high the pick was has to weigh in the whole equation. But if we're talking about picks since 2006, there's one that really stands out to me, and it's Andrew Jenkins, because he just didn't play. Like, he didn't play at all. Like, it was like, here's our draft pick, first rounder, take it. We don't want to use it. That's what the AJ Jenkins pick was. At least Solomon Thomas played a little bit. And yes, it was a bad pick. Number 3 overall. He was drafted way too high. He wasn't a top 10 player. To me, I'm not sure what they saw in him. He was an obvious tweener, and he was even, not as good as I thought he was. I still thought he's a mid first round player, but definitely didn't get the top 3 vibe from him at all. They traded down first, so they got a little extra pick for him there, but really it didn't hurt that bad because they found a first round player in George Kittle in 2017. And so that helped so much. It helps so much because when you look at that draft, if you reshuffle things, it's like, okay, well, they got value in the first round because they got a first round player in George Kittle. And then the next year, it's like, well, they got first round value in a third rounder in Fred Warner. So that's how the 49ers were able to skate through that. If they didn't, though, find those first round value players later in the draft, then we might be talking about the 49ers in a much different light, especially about how their draft's gone, how the front office has been since 2017 when Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch took over. And Solomon Thomas was a bad pick. It's top 2, top 3, but number 1 to me is easily AJ Jenkins. And you just can't. I can't think of a pick that was whiffed that hard where the guy, it wasn't because of injury. Dude couldn't play. He couldn't even stand on his feet running a route in training camp. I've never even heard of that for a wide receiver.
I think the worst part is that Trent Baalke had the envelope, right? That's the envelope pick where he had the
AJ Jenkins no matter what pick. Like, and remember, so I do this thing. Anybody who listens to the podcast know I do this thing that's called Shadow 49ers. Essentially, I don't like hindsight scouting. So that's why I always reference how I thought of it at the time, because I think that's important, because people always talk about, oh, you passed on Tom Brady 6 times. It's like, okay, well, let's see your big board that had Tom Brady as a first round pick, right? It's like, come on. So hindsight scouting bothers me a little bit. And then I also thought, well, Trent Baalke's getting all this credit. People were calling him the draft ninja. I'm like, you know what? I'm going to draft along with Trent Baalke because I think I can outdraft this dude, because I'm not seeing the draft ninja stuff. And it was the year I started 2013 after the AJ Jenkins draft. It's like, okay, this dude's off the rails. He's definitely not a draft ninja. So I'm going to start shadow drafting when the Niners are on the clock. I'm going to make my pick, the one player I think who I should have taken at the time, So I started doing that in 2013 following the AJ Jenkins draft. And this was before we realized how bad he was. And before they made that trade. But it's like Trent Baalke, and speaking of Urban Meyer, big mistake. Trent Baalke's his GM, drafted 2 guys coming off ACL injuries in the first draft with the Jacksonville Jaguars. So good luck there. At least they got their quarterback. But I'm still not super high on that front office and coaching staff there, because college coaches just don't translate all that well to the NFL, even the great ones. But anyway, back to the 49ers. That's why, for me, you have to go back, and I go back to how I felt at the time since 2013, since I've really started documenting this stuff. And, Solomon Thomas wasn't a top 5 pick, wasn't a top 10 pick to me. And so I can say that. And I can say that I had, Deshaun Watson there, Jamal Adams. Those were the 2 guys. That was it. They were picking third. The next 2 players for me in that tier, it was Jamal Adams, Deshaun Watson.
Croc,
that's what I can say, because that's how I thought at the time. hindsight, people will say, I can't believe you passed on Patrick Mahomes, but that's just much more unrealistic, at least to me, versus my big board and what people were mock drafting at the time. And Kyle Shanahan kind of talked about that too with Solomon Thomas, about how, Patrick Mahomes wasn't going to go top 5. Like, everybody knew it. And actually, it was surprising that he went as high as he did in the top 10.
Croc, that's what I was going to ask you. So I'll ask you who you think the worst draft pick was from 2006. But how much of who was on the board at that time when it came to Solomon Thomas contributes to how people view that pick?
I think that has a lot to do with it, because outside of him, I mean, there were a lot of people that love Malik Hooker. They ain't talking about Malik Hooker now, right? Like, we don't even know if he's still in the NFL, right?
No, he's out there, and we'd love to bring him in for safety help at this point. He's fallen so far from then that now he's a free agent, and 49er fans want to bring him in for safety depth. So that's to your point, Eric. Yeah,
so I remember going back. I was not a fan of Solomon Thomas at all. I was praying and hoping that wasn't the guy that they took. I actually like Derek Barnett, right? That's his name, the edge rusher that went to the Eagles. Mm-hmm. So that was who I wanted at that pick. It was either him or Jamal Adams for me. And I think clearly the answer for me is A.J. Jenkins. I think he's the worst pick. And the reason why, for a lot of reasons that Peacock described. First of all, I get it in the sense of where you're drafted. I think even where Solomon Thomas was drafted, he's not a whiff. Like, he played and he got reps. He got limited production, but he was good at run stopping or whatever. But maybe other guys that they drafted were better than him. And then you got Nick Bosa, and you brought in D Ford, and they kind of just pushed him out of there. But just in the sense of him being able to play, like, he was on the field the whole time. He was active. There weren't games where it's like, oh, you got this guy at number 3 overall, and he just can't play. He just stinks. It was just like, well, he's a good rotation player that maybe should have been a second-round pick. But he's not a terrible pick in the sense of a guy that just can't play at all and just ain't in the NFL. As soon as he hit free agency, he got picked up by the Raiders. So it's not like a guy that just overall just complete terrible football player. A.J. Jenkins never had a catch and only played like 3 games his rookie year. All right. So unlike Solomon Thomas, who actually played in games every year, right? A.J. Jenkins did not play in any. He only played in 3 games that year, and then had 0 catches on 1 target, and then was traded. That has to be, and he's still a first-round pick into the first round, but he was still a first-round pick. And if you're going to take a receiver, this makes it even worse because of who else? Alshon Jeffrey was there, and I know everybody liked Alshon Jeffrey coming out of South Carolina at that time. So that makes it even worse because it was like Alshon was more of like the no-brainer pick at that time, and they elected to draft a guy, A.J. Jenkins, that just never panned out to be anything, while Alshon Jeffrey had a really good NFL career. So A.J. Jenkins, by far, that's the worst first-round pick because you got nothing from it. And I don't care. I saw people respond and say, well, they didn't really need him to be productive because they had other guys. Like, dude, that's besides the point. This dude did not give you anything. And then you traded him for somebody that you thought might have been. I mean, you traded him for another receiver that was a first-round bust from the year before, and he was sorry. So it was just a bad situation overall. That has to be the worst pick.
Yeah, it's so bad. And I got to shout out Kentwan Balmer, who deserves to be part of the discussion here. If we're talking about since 2006, I think is when the grading starts for Pro Football Focus that they're talking about here as a time frame. Reuben Foster maybe in consideration as well. Kentwan Balmer's probably 2 or 3 on the list. A.J. Jenkins 1. Because of how high the pick was, I get why Solomon Thomas is considered, but at least he played and at least he had some value to the team, unlike A.J. Jenkins. It was all about that arm length, the hand size. Like Trent Baalke got in his own head with some of that stuff. And remember, because he hit so big on Aldon Smith, is like the arm length and the condor, and like every guy from then on was like all about hand size, arm length, and he freaked out about it. And I think he tweaked out in his own head about it. And like Trent Brown, that was a good pick in the 7th round. And he's like, I think I'm onto something. I got it. Just don't look at anything else. I don't care if you can play. Got big hands, long arms. I'm going to draft you. And then it finally burned.
And I will say, Peacock's Shadow 49er draft is actually, it's better than a lot of the 49ers drafts in any regime that you can put. And again, like you said, it's not just hindsight. This isn't hindsight. This is his pick at the time. He puts his shadow draft up after the draft, and he has a whole what are those things called? Not PDF,
Google
but
Docs,
spreadsheet.
Like a spreadsheet. He has a whole spreadsheet with every year that he's done the shadow draft, which shows the 49ers picks and the guy that he would have picked, and he keeps track of it. So it's not something in hindsight like, oh, I wish I would have took this guy. Like it's legit. I know I could say like a couple guys like I would have never taken Mike McGlinchey. I would have took Minka Fitzpatrick. Like, but I haven't tracked it for every pick. This year I would have taken Terrace Marshall over Aaron Banks.
Yep, we saw both those the same. Shadow 49ers there with Terrace Marshall and Minka Fitzpatrick. By the way, Minka Fitzpatrick and Jamal Adams, that would have been a crazy duo. I don't feel great about drafting safeties that high. They were just the best players on the board at the time.
Available.
Jamal Adams was like a culture changer. Number 3 is high for a safety. I get it. But just everything he brought, I thought, oh, man, the Cam Chancellor role, new defense. I thought that was like a really nice fit for the 49ers at the time. I do have to say, though, I love the Reuben Foster pick. We talked about this on the podcast. Yeah. Reuben Foster was a human missile, man. And I know there's off-field stuff, and I wasn't privy to that information. Maybe that would have chased me off, but he was the shadow 49er pick. I was all about that Reuben Foster pick. I thought that was a brilliant move, them moving up to get him, but there was a reason he fell that far because talent-wise, he should have never gotten deep into.
And the hindsight behind all that, now everybody can say whatever about Reuben Foster, but the New Orleans Saints literally pivoted to Ryan Ramczyk because Reuben Foster came off the board right before, and the 49ers – right. And it's funny because the 49ers had prioritized Solomon Thomas in a way to change culture because of what had happened in the previous regimes with guys with the off the field stuff. So they took a shot. I understand you took a shot on the talent, but there were other teams that also wanted Reuben Foster. So that one doesn't really jive as well for me with it. And just for the viewer that's watching this right now, whoever this is, you who is watching this right now, you have as many catches as AJ Jenkins does in the NFL. Whoever you are right now watching this, you have that many catches in the NFL. He had 1 target, and that is the biggest whiff. I understand not needing that, but when you have a first-round pick, those have to hit. Those have to hit no matter whether you're a good team or a rebuilding team. When you take someone in the first round, those guys have to hit. So I think that the Solomon Thomas thing, I'm going to say, he gets a lot of hate because of, 1, where he was drafted. I don't think he should have gone that high. And 2, I think that he was played out of position for a large portion of his career. And I think that has a little bit to do with it. I understand that you want to say, hey, if you're drafted that high, you can overcome those things. But unfortunately, I don't think that that's possible when you're talking about where he's being played. So great discussion here. Let's move on. And this is a discussion that I want to talk to you guys about because there's a lot of chatter about on July 2nd or even before that the 49ers should be Super Bowl or bust. So let me lay out half of the argument for you. The NFC is wide open, aside from the Bucs. After that, it is basically an hodgepodge of whoever it is can stay healthy and whoever it is can play more football, better football. And that is why I could see people saying that. Me, myself, before I pass it, and I'll start with Croc. Me, myself, before I pass it, I don't view this team as a Super Bowl or a bust team. And that's not what's going to make a successful year for myself. What I want to see is I want to see things moving in the right direction. If the 49ers win a playoff game, that is a successful season for me. And this is what people don't get. You can't make the Super Bowl unless you make the playoffs. Why wouldn't the playoffs be the ultimate goal? I'll start with you, Croc.
The way I look at it, I hate the whole Super Bowl conversation. It's like Super Bowl or bust. And my thing is dude, 49ers haven't won a Super Bowl since 1994. So to me, the goal should be, can we be competitive to where we make a run at the playoffs? And I strongly feel like any team that makes it to the playoffs can win the Super Bowl. At that point, it's a tournament. And at the end of the day, it's any given Sunday, a team can get hot. And we've seen it, right, with the Giants twice. Eli Manning has only won playoff games in 2 seasons in his 17-year career. And both times his team got hot. They were wild card teams and won the Super Bowl. So I always look at it from that standpoint. If you can play good at the end of the year and you can just get into the dance, then why can't you win the Super Bowl? So if this 49er team can make it to the playoffs, I don't know what they are right now. We'll find out. But if they can make it to the playoffs, from that standpoint, anything can happen. The whole Super Bowl or bust thing, man, I don't know. I don't even look at it like that. I just look at it as get into the dance, and from there, anything can happen. If we're in the playoffs and all of a sudden Jimmy Garoppolo is getting hot, or Trey Lance is getting hot, and the running game is clicking, and the defense is getting after it, right? Nick Bosa is a factor. Then why can't the 49ers win it all? So that's just how I look at it. The Super Bowl bust thing, I don't even think. I think maybe if you get to the standpoint of what the Chiefs are, where they've gone to the Super Bowl 2 straight years and AFC Championship 3 straight years, I think maybe when you get to that point, you can throw around Super Bowl or bust. But I think for most teams, it's let's get into the dance, right? Most people want to win their division first, so they get a home playoff game, right? Let's win our division. We get that home playoff game. And then from there, let's play some good football, and anybody can make a run from there. There were times last year where Tampa Bay didn't look good. They won the Super Bowl. There was, I mean, if you were to kind of stop at week 8 and say, hey, are the Tampa Bay Buccaneers Super Bowl bust right now? Man, nobody would say right? They weren't playing at that high level. They were getting their butts kicked by the Saints left and right? Yep. But then fast forward, and they got their butts kicked by the Chiefs. Where Tyreek Hill had 200 yards in the first quarter.
Yep, he did in the first quarter. In the first half, he had almost 200.
So you look at that and how that whole thing is viewed, man. I don't agree with the whole Super Bowl or bust thing unless you go on 2-3 straight times. Maybe the Jim Harbaugh 49ers, they got into that kind of arena. But for the most part, for everybody, can we get into the dance? And if you can get into there, then anything can happen.
That's my point real quick before I pass it to Brian, is circumstances change. When you look at power rankings at week 1, week 4, week 8, there's teams that the Patriots were unbeatable, right? That last year they had Brady, right? They didn't lose any games. And how many people would have told you in week 8 that they were a lock to make the Super Bowl? Well, guess what? The Tennessee Titans bounced them and sent them out. So circumstances change week to week. That's why I don't think it's fair to place, especially before we've even seen bullets flying, place any sort of expectations on this team right now, aside of let's just get out of training camp with this entire team healthy. And then we'll figure out the quarterback situation and all those other things. So, Brian, reasonable expectations for the 2021 season.
Yeah, Super Bowl or bust is insane. We just saw the 49ers go through this last year. Run it back. No, you can't run it back. It's different. It's different every single year. And so I don't think it's coming from the 49ers, this idea of Super Bowl or bust, but it definitely shouldn't be coming from anybody about the 49ers, because it's all about the playoffs. Go win your division, go win each week, be competitive, get into the tournament, and then go win some games and see what you can do. And you have some luck on your side, because that's key. We've seen that in every Super Bowl. We saw that talking about the Giants and the Patriots, and there's some luck involved. You got to have a guy make a catch off a helmet, and it's all about the tournament. It's all about winning your division, making the tournament as easy as possible for you. Get yourself a bye, which is more difficult to do now. And if you have a free bye, got to win 2 games, and you're in the Super Bowl, it's doable for a really good football team, but you're going to be facing some other really good football teams. So, Super Bowl or bust doesn't make sense for anybody. It doesn't make sense for the 49ers now. It didn't make sense for the 49ers last year. I got really uneasy last year when they started talking about run it back, because you just lost your best defensive player in DeForest Buckner. So how are you going to run that back? And that's another thing that I think 49ers fans are thinking, okay, well, if we're healthy, we're going to have the best defense in the league like we did in 2019. It's this is a different team. This is a different defense. Even if you re-sign Richard Sherman right now, he's a 2-year older version of Richard Sherman. And right now you don't have him at all. You're going to have to utilize some young talent there in the secondary at corner and get lucky. You don't have DeForest Buckner. Can your first-round replacement for him and Javon Kinlaw get to that level? Can he get closer to that level? Is Nick Bosa, coming off his second ACL tear in his life, going to be the dude he was in 2019 as a rookie? So there's a ton of questions with the 49ers and then the quarterback situation. Who knows what's going to happen there with Jimmy Garoppolo and Trey Lance. So expectations should be that this team is good. They're absolutely good. They have a really good roster. I think they're well coached. New defensive coordinator, by the way. How's that going to look? I have no idea. So there's a lot of variables, and teams change year to year, and Super Bowl or bust is nonsense. But this team should be able to compete, and that should be the goal, is to win the division.
And that's the funny thing, is that I feel like this defense can regress and still be top 10. And that is in no way anything bad. The problem is that the formula that the 49ers had in 2019, when you have someone at quarterback who is more of a game manager than a game changer, is you have to have a top 1-2 defense. Like, you have to have that sort of defense that will choke off almost everything. And then, you put the game in the team's hands. With this team right now, they could take a step back and be a top 10 defense and still not win as many games. It's very possible. It's in the range of outcomes. It is. So I think that, again, when the 49er fans, and this is the comparison I'll make, and then we'll end it here, because we're getting close to the end time. The 49er fans that want to say, well, the 49ers have beaten the Rams 4 straight times. The Rams are in the playoffs every single year. Can you ask anything more than that at this point? Then getting in the playoffs, beating the Seahawks with Walford starting, and then a broken hand Jared Goff coming in that game and winning that game and moving on. Can you ask anything more than that from this team? And after you get into the tournament, again, teams are injured. Things schematically don't work throughout the year. Things get exposed. Why wouldn't the goal be to just make the tournament and then just see what happens? Is really where I'm at with it.
Should always be the goal. Yeah, that should always be the goal. Be a good team, be competitive every single week. And even winning your division, that's always the goal, obviously. And, getting the Super Bowl is the goal. But looking too far ahead is bad in the NFL. Like, week 1, let's win week 1. Detroit Lions. There's some teams that the 49ers need to beat early in the season, set the stage for this thing, and remind everybody who they are.
I think Rex Ryan might be the only coach that would probably go out there and be like, yeah, it's Super Bowl buzz. We're going to kick everybody's ass. Like, he's probably the only guy. Most coaches would tell you, like, dude, it's hard to win in the NFL. We just need to win games, and we'll just string games along. And in their head, that's probably how they really feel. Like, we really just need to string games along and win. Like, they can't think about Super Bowl, especially knowing how seldom most people win Super Bowls. Like, it doesn't happen. Even if you have great players. Aaron Rodgers has 1 Super Bowl. 1. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, those things are really tough to come by. So I don't even think a head coach can think like, oh yeah, we are a Super Bowl team, and that's just what we like. No, I think they feel like they put together a good team, and then it's like, all right, if we play our butts off, then that's what we can get to. But the Super Bowl bust thing, man, I don't know about that. I think that's for fans and media to talk about.
I think the other thing, too, is that I think that people think that 2019 is easily replicated, and I don't think that that's something that you should be putting your finger on. First of all, this team had almost everything break right. They had injuries for sure, but they didn't have injuries to big players. And let's just put it out there. 49er fans, when the playoff seeding started to happen, because the 49ers won their week 1 bye in week 17, which in itself was its first playoff game. That was a hurdle that this team needed to climb. If I would have told you the Minnesota Vikings were coming into the stadium to play them, and they didn't have to go on the road to play the New Orleans Saints or anybody else or the Green Bay Packers, anybody would have kind of thought that was the easiest path down the line. And I think that's why people get wrapped up in 2019 and they think it's so easily replicated. No, the circumstances and the context to how the 49ers made that Super Bowl has a lot to do with where they ended up. It was an
ideal situation.
It was completely ideal. And that's why, look,
a couple of plays of home field, beating this team, beating that team, Seattle,
right.
or New Orleans, like
right.
2 plays in the season, the 49ers aren't at home.
And that's my point, is I don't want to be the downer, but 2019 was the year to win the Super Bowl. That was it. It was literally laid out for you in the most perfect way going into that fourth quarter. Literally everything that could have broken your way broke your way. And I think that fans discount the idea of all of that. It's not as easy as the best roster. It's not as easy as the best coaching or the best team. That's not how things work. The best team rarely wins the Super Bowl. Rarely. And with the Bucs, they're running it back with literally everybody that they had from last year. They didn't lose a single player. So for people to say the Bucs are on a Super Bowl path, that's fine. They just won it. Cool. You can say that. For the 49ers, after coming off the year that they've had with the injuries and the depth, I just don't know how you can say that with a straight face and really mean that.
And what are the Bucs saying right now? Hey, let's run it back. Let's bring everybody back and run it back because it's so easy. And we're just going to do it again like we just did last year. It doesn't happen. It does not happen that way. And we just saw that with the 2020 49ers.
Oh, somebody just said something real crazy in the comments, unless I'm reading this wrong.
Go for it.
I think Vea is right there with Donald, 1 and 1A.
Ooh, I don't know about that.
There is nobody with Donald.
Right.
Like, there is nobody. Like, this is the best defensive player I've ever seen in my life. I get it. Reggie White was legit. I kind of saw him towards the end of his career. I did not really get to see Lawrence Taylor like that. Aaron Donald is the most dominant defensive player I've ever seen in my life. Ever. I have not seen
anything I missed in the chat where we're talking about Vita Vea right now.
No, well, you can check the comments and the stream, but I think what he's saying is that Vita Vea's impact is similar to Aaron Donald's for that defense. I don't know if I agree with that, but I think that's what he's trying to say. I don't think you can compare Vita Vea to Aaron Donald one word.
Compare him to somebody else. You can't compare him to Aaron Donald.
One is the best player in the league.
Somebody else in his impact.
Yeah, one is the best player in the league. Aaron Donald's the best player in the league. And I don't think that there's much of a discussion when it comes to that because of how he impacts it. I think that what he means is that Aaron Donald's impact is similar to what Vita Vea brought to that defense, because you were right, Croc. Week 1 through 4, everybody was laughing at the Bucs. I remember before the season, and this is like, whatever, we can make this a cold take. I was like, that's the best 8-8 team I ever seen in my life with Tom Brady and Gronk and all these guys. And that's unfortunately not what happened, but that's what I thought at the time. So I'll say that. I think that's what he really means. And we'll take this quick donation because I know we got to get out of here. Fire show, fellas. Love the insights. Which players on the 49ers offense and defense can't be injured to make a playoff push? We'll use this as our last topic right before we go because I know everybody's got to go. But on offense, and defense, who are the 2 players that can't be injured? I'll start with you, Brian.
Oh, Nick Bosa again is so huge. Sorry, I'm trying to figure out what's going on with my shades. The sun's coming through, and it's like
you're good,
shooting little beams into my eyes. Nick Bosa. Nick Bosa is the most important piece to the 49ers. We saw it last year when he went out, and that pass rush is so important, and that defense is so based on, and we'll see how the defense changes, obviously, with a new defensive coordinator, but it's so important to have a pass rush there, and Nick Bosa was that impactful every single down runner pass for the 49ers as a rookie in 2019. They got to have him back. He's by far the most important player, I think, in the entire team. And I know how good George Kittle is, and I know how good Fred Warner is, and I know how important quarterbacks are around the league, but at least they have one to fall back on potentially now this year if somebody does get hurt. So to me, it's Nick Bosa by a landslide.
Okay, Croc.
He named one player. The question said players, so I'm going to kind of go a little further than that. You can't lose your best players, and that's what happened last year. Every one of their best players, they lost for an extended period of time, except for Trent Williams. I'm going to say, again, you can't lose your best players, right? You can't lose Fred Warner. You can't lose Bosa. You can't lose Trent Williams. I think those are the 3 guys, and George Kittle. But George Kittle, you can't play because it's tight end. You can't play around him. But Trent Williams, irreplaceable. We saw what happened in the Packers game when he wasn't playing. Oh, that was a wreck. All right. Bosa and Fred Warner. Don't lose those guys, especially for an extended period of time. Last year, they lost 3 guys for like damn near the whole season. Hopefully this year they don't have that type of bad luck. And they don't. I think they should be fine.
That's what I was talking about in 2019. The 49ers, when people always talk to me on Twitter about how many injuries were in 2019, well, that's not telling the story. That's not Nick Bosa being injured. That's not Fred Warner being injured. So in 2019, they had many injuries, yes, but they didn't have injuries to impactful players. So on defense, I'm going to say it's Bosa and Warner. Those guys are invaluable. You cannot lose those guys. And on offense, it's easy. Now the quarterback position, if Jimmy Garoppolo gets injured, now it seems to be in good hands with Trey Lance. But you can't lose your best players. You can't. And that's what happened in 2019. And that's why I think it's unfair to say that you can replicate what happened in 2019 because those injuries happened, but it just didn't happen to the players that you needed it the most. And look, I don't want to discount one player's season-ending injury to another because these guys all put it all on the line every single week. So I'm not trying to say one player is more important than the other, but it's just hard to lose those impact players for long stretches and continue to think that you're going to win games is the best way I could probably put it.
Yep, I agree, man.
I'm seeing some folks say Alex Mack in the comments here. And yeah, I think center is very important to Kyle Shanahan's offense. But look, you can throw Daniel Brunskill in there and you'll be all right. And it's not like the drop off from last year after Garoppolo went out or losing Nick Bosa. So I just don't think anything can compare to those positions. And you're right. The 49ers were hit too hard at too many important positions last year, and you can't get over that.
Yep. And I agree with you guys 100%. I think that a lot of the offensive line issues, if you want to play, like everybody threw that at Mike McGlinchey, I think that a lot of that has to do with communication errors, especially on the left side. But we can do a whole other podcast on that sort of thing. 55 minutes. Eric Crocker, Brian Peacock from Locked On 49ers. Talk to everybody where they can find your stuff as if they don't know. You're on my show and everybody knows where they can find your stuff. But still, at the same time, if there's someone out there who doesn't know where to find you guys, tell them where they can find all your content.
Croc Talk TV, first of all, on YouTube, where you can find Eric Crocker. He's already dropped a video, I think, today. I can barely see the screen right now. Like the sun just hit this perfect moment. It is cranking through these shades over here, and like I don't have time to fix it correctly, so I can barely see you guys on the screen right now. But Locked On 49ers, Crocker is my new co-host. We've been doing it all month now. We're entering month 2 together. It's been so much fun talking ball with him every single day. He brings so much knowledge. So daily, that's what we do. Every single day, you're going to find a Locked On 49ers podcast if you are subscribed on all of your favorite podcast apps.
Awesome. Croc, do your thing with the YouTube as well.
Oh, yeah. Eric_Crocker on Twitter, Croc Talk TV, podcast on all your streaming platforms and on YouTube as well for the visual. And I just partnered up with, I haven't really announced it yet, but I just partnered up with Underdog Fantasy Football. So that's really cool. I'm really excited about that. So if you have not signed up for Underdog Fantasy Football, don't do it yet. Wait until the 6th when I get my promo code Croc. You guys got to make sure you guys sign up with that. And I'm going to have a bunch of different fantasy contests and tournaments and things like that throughout the year. So that's going to be a lot of fun. So yeah, Croc Talk TV.
We got to do a podcasters league on that, Jason.
Yeah, what's up? Like, yeah. What's up, man?
Out to all the folks. There's plenty of 49ers.
Don't sign up yet. Up yet. You guys got to all sign up with promo code Croc.
Look, Croc. So the way that we jumped on the pod earlier with KP about DJ Moore and Deebo Samuel. A lot of my vast football knowledge of other teams comes from fantasy football, and I'm tired of people talking crazy about people who like fantasy football. I understand roster construction. I understand your depth chart. I understand play calling from 30 teams. You know why? I'm in 57 fantasy football leagues. That's not a joke. Yeah, that's not a joke. That is not an exaggeration. I really take this seriously. So when people talk crazy about fantasy football people, yeah, you want to talk crazy about the people who value stats over actual fantasy over actual football production. But at the same time, that has helped me gain a vast knowledge of players, and that's why I love DJ Moore so much. But I will tell you this right before we get out of here. It is a large thrill to be able to create content with you gentlemen. Both of you guys I look up to in different ways. I learned so much from you guys, and this will never not be fun. I hate double negatives, but I just used it right now. But this is something that I will always cherish, and this is something that any of us, we're always honored to have guests like you guys on. And this was a blast of an episode for us.
Oh,
appreciate that, Jason. I have a question for you, though. Which one of us do you look up more to when it comes to swag?
Oh, swag. So if it's a drip check, then I got to go to Croc. And I do just only because Croc has so many opinionated, so many opinions on. All right. So when I went to Pasquini's Pro Day, I wore all black and I bought white cleats the day before. I really was interested to hear about what Croc had to say about that. And he said I would never contrast in that way. For me, I thought what I wore, the black Nike shirt, the black tights with the pants and the white cleats, I thought it was drippy, but Croc didn't feel that way.
It depends on the person too. Like, I love Prince, but I'm not going to go rock a purple scarf outside right now, you know? So that's a big part of it too. You got to know what lane you're in.
Yeah.
No,
well,
you
I'll say
do, but
this.
I went
I
to
look
Croc
up
for
to
it.
both. I look up to both of you guys because you guys are both like 6'5", so and I'm only 6'1". So
Wait,
You got the height
Brian,
on you.
how tall are you, Brian?
6'4".
Wow, unbelievable. So I didn't know that. And wow, I guess we wouldn't know that being based that we're doing this all on video or anything like that. But good gosh, man, I didn't know that, Brian. That I don't know if that changes my perception of your opinion, but it might. It might at this point.
I'm coming from a different viewpoint, right? I got a different angle on things.
Absolutely. So
Yeah.
we'll do this again as we get closer to the season. I want to appreciate you guys because I know your time is very valuable, and for you guys to use this with us is a huge bonus for us. And again, I appreciate you guys. And for everybody who tuned in, subscribed, sent money, I appreciate you guys. Make sure you drop a like. Make sure you subscribe to the page. Make sure that you check the Sprint Right Option podcast on any of your streaming platforms. For Eric Crocker, for Brian Peacock, aka Peacock, that's what I'm running with. Thank you guys for joining, and we'll see you guys soon.
Have a great weekend, everybody.